Hello everyone and welcome back. The boss we're going to cover today is Harjatan. Now for Harjatan, you do want to tank him on the edge of the room because ads will spawn in this area so they're easier to pick up. And one thing that you need to do that's going to go against every fiber of your being is to tank the boss facing the raid. Alright, for the tank breakdown, remember to face the boss towards the raid so that everybody stacks. The boss will cast something called Unchecked Rage. This is a frontal cone ability that is split between everyone that it hits, and if it only hits the tanks, they will go down. Now, one other option you have is to face the boss away from the raid, and right before he casts Unchecked Rage, run through him and face him towards the rest of the raid. But the easy lazy way is to just face him towards the raid and do the fight that way. Now, for the tanks, there is a stacking debuff called Jagged Abrasion, and you do need to taunt every 4 to 6 stacks, and as soon as your stacks fall off, just go ahead and taunt. Now, since this boss will be handing out debuffs and there will be puddles of water everywhere in the room, at one point this boss will do what Nithendra does and suck them all in. So you do want those puddles to be on the edges and behind the boss. If any of them are right where the raid is or in a line between the raid and the boss, then you do want to reposition the boss so that they're all to the side or behind him. Because when he does draw those pools in, you do want to avoid making contact with them. There are also ads, there are gladiators and wave benders. Try to pick up as many of these ads as possible. The wave benders might be a little busy casting, you can interrupt them, but the gladiators have a frontal cleave that you actually don't need to share with anyone. So if you're on ad duty because you have the debuff on you and you're not the active tank, pick up these ads and face them away from the raid. Now for the DPS and the healers, make sure to stack up with the group, and more than likely the group will just be all on top of the tank, so stack up. When the ads come out, make sure to DPS those ads down immediately. The wave menders have priority, they can be interrupted, but they also disrupt everything a lot more than the gladiators. If there is a gladiator fixated on you and chasing you down, kite as best as you can while DPSing. The big thing to note here is if you ever get the AoE debuff on you, kind of like this, you do want to run to the edges of the room or behind the boss if there is space there, and drop your puddles off in that area. Now the reason for this is the boss does draw in all of these puddles, so if they are behind the raid, the puddle will cross the raid and damage everybody there. So try to do the sides and behind the boss so that you don't have to actively dodge the puddles when he does draw them in. Now right after the boss does draw in all of the puddles around him, you do actually want to scatter and spread out around the room. With every single auto attack he does, he will target someone in the raid and throw a puddle at them. So right after the draw in, spread out to the edges of the room and behind the boss again. Basically wherever you would want a puddle to be placed, that's where you should spread out and stand in. Once the Frigid Blows debuff goes away from the boss, you have to restack up in order to split the damage for the frontal cone ability. So remember, stack up on the fight, immediately after the draw in, spread out, and right after the boss's buff goes away, stack back up. I really do think this boss is at about a 4 out of 10. As long as your puddles are managed, that's going to be the biggest mechanic here. If your puddle placement is off, you do have to keep dragging the boss across the room and actually move your position so that you do avoid these puddles. But once you start getting puddle placement down, the boss is relatively easy, so just remember, DPS the ads out first and keep your puddle placement under control. Thank you all for watching, and as always, good luck out there.